Hello there. Good morning once again. So this is Durga Shankar here. I am the Chief Mentor for AP and Telangana. So welcome back to the second day of our Road to MBA event. So today's session will be about which tests you take. And here along with me, we have Mr. Bimal Master, Chief Mentor for IMS Mumbai, and Samrat Roy, Chief Mentor for IMS Kolkata. So all three of us will take you through this session for the next 1.5 hours, which is very important in terms of figuring out what exams or which tests that you will have to opt for apart from CAT. So there are a lot of popular myths as such that we would like to bust during this process. So to start with, let's quickly see what is the agenda that we have for today's session. And I'll give you a brief overview of what all we will be covering. And then all three of us will take you through the respective parts of it. So if we look at the session agenda in the next slide. So we'll be covering these 4 parts. The first one is the why, obviously. Now, when someone is planning to pursue an MBA, a management program in India, obviously CAT becomes the choice. So everyone wants to prepare for CAT and all. Now, what are these other exams, and why do we have to prepare for it? How do we have to prepare for it, etc. is what we will be covering in this particular session. So first part we will look at is what is the necessity. Now, we know that CAT helps us to target all the IM, A, B, C, L, and all the IM. But why is it that we should also choose certain non-CAT exams? And in the subsequent parts of this session, we will take you through what are those non-CAT tests and what are the parameters based on which you select the right test. And at the end of it, how IMS programs will help you prepare for these tests effectively. So let's quickly look at what are the standard or what are the important reasons based on which one has to choose non-CAT tests. Now, if we look at the next slide, now why choose the non-CAT tests? Now, when we have students coming to us, now this is based on our experience, let's say over the last 2 decades in this industry, that any student who aspires to pursue an MBA, the first thing they'll do is, they want to prepare for CAT. Brilliant, no doubt about that. Now, but one thing we'll have to understand is, guys, preparing for CAT, if you want to do an MBA, is only a start of the journey. It's not the end of the journey. And all of us or all of you aspiring management graduates, isn't it important that you stay smart? Now, being smart and having a practical thinking is one of the most common factors that even B schools look out for in candidates who are potential management aspirants. So if you want to prepare for CAT, very well, but it is not a very great idea if you put all your eggs into the same basket, as it is popularly said. So one of the major reasons why you will have to choose some of the non-CAT tests is that you will have to distribute your risk. Essentially, you need to have a plan B. Now, of course, CAT is our plan A, but what happens if we don't deliver exactly the same way we want to? Now, you cannot wait for 1 more year. So we should have a plan B. And believe me, the plan B is also worthwhile as compared to plan A. Now, let us see certain other factors that are there. Now, if you look at any of the top colleges, now apart from IIMs, if you guys have done your research, I'm sure you will know that generally students target the top 20, 25, 30 B schools. So even at IMS, we advise students to generally target at least the top 30, 35 colleges so that the amount of effort, time, and money that you invest will give you a significant outcome, not only in terms of the pay package that we generally look at, but overall as a career start. Now, in those top 30, 35 colleges, apart from the big IIMs and the FMS, SPJN of the world, you will also see there are colleges like XLRI Jamshedpur, which is considered to be at par with the top 4 IIMs. We have NMAT-SNAP-CMAT Bombay, then SIBM Pune, Symbiosis, etc. Now, these colleges are considered to be at par or in certain terms better than some of the IIMs as well. So this is one very important reason as to why we'll have to consider taking any of the non-CAT exams apart from CAT. Now, the next reason that we have is also the fact that there are certain colleges, again, some of the colleges in the top 30, 40 league, like SPJIMR, MICA, Xavier University, Bhubaneswar, IMT, etc. Some of the names that you see on the screen, these colleges offer admission based on multiple test scores. So, which means it is not only through CAT, you can target these colleges either through a XAT or through a CMAT for some of them. So when SPJIMR is my target college and when they accept CAT and XAT, isn't it logical that we attempt both the exams and improve our chances of securing an interview call? Now, one of the other major reasons also to look for non-CAT exams is that one of the very frequent FAQs, as we call. So in fact, very regularly we come across students who ask us, sir, my academic scores are not great. In graduation, I don't have 70%, or in my 10th and 12th, I only have 65%. So these days, most of the top IIMs give weightage to academic scores. So will I not be able to secure an admission into any of the top B schools? Now, I think here the non-CAT exams become very important, because if you look at the top 7 IIMs, essentially, IIM Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Kolkata, Lucknow, Indore, Kozhikode and Shillong, there is certain amount of weightage that is given to the academic scores before shortlisting students for the interview process. However, when you look at colleges like XLRI, Symbiosis, NMIMS, all these colleges shortlist students for interview only based on the test score. So your aspects or your profile in terms of your academic scores or work experience or any other factors will come into play only when you sit for the interview. And I'm sure all of us agree that when we sit for an interview, it's sort of a game changer. So depending on how we utilize that opportunity to convince the panelist that we are the right candidate, any of the other factors we have on our profile can be thoroughly compensated for. So hence, for those of you who are worried that your academic scores are not great and you don't have a great chance at any of the top 7 non-CAT exams become important because you can target the best of the schools among the top 20, 25 with these exams. Now, these are some of the major points because of which become the reason for most of you to choose non-CAT exams. And the last but not the least, also if you see, though all these management admission tests are generally aptitude-based exams, but if you peep in and if you look at the test structure, the topics that are covered, the importance that is given to various areas, the type of skill that these exams expect from the candidate, they are not same for all the tests. Different tests require different skills. So if you look at the test structure, understand the number of questions that come from each area, the topics that are covered in each of these exams, I'm sure you'll agree with me that the type of skill, ability that you need to have to be able to crack these exams is not exactly the same. So different tests require different skills. Hence, it also becomes important for you to figure out whether you have any of these non-CAT exams that are suitable to your skill and ability, and thereby you can get a better outcome. So broadly, these are the 4 major reasons, guys, as to why anyone has to choose non-CAT exams. So quickly to summarize, 1 is you'll have to distribute your risk. You need to have a plan B. 2, your plan B is as good as your plan A because you get to target some of the best colleges like XLRI, SIPM Pune, NMIMS, etc. Point 3 is most of these colleges accept both or multiple test scores. So by appearing for CAT and a XAT and a CMAT, etc., you will improve your chances of securing an interview call with these colleges. And lastly, because different tests require different skills, you might be able to figure out some of these exams which are very suitable to your ability and perform better as compared to the other tests. So broadly, this is the initial understanding we need to have about why one has to choose non-CAT tests. Now we will move to the second section where Bimal sir and Samrat sir will take you through the rest of the session, give you an overall understanding of what are all these non-CAT tests and how do we have to plan for those and how do we have to choose any of those that we have to go for. So over to you, Bimal sir.
So, good morning to all of you, right? It's a nice Saturday morning, and I can see almost 100 participants for this session, which is good to see considering the timing. I'm sure most of you, would have a lot of questions in your mind about, taking all these different tests. So, Durga sir initially had covered, a fair bit of ground in trying to establish the need for all these different tests, right? So, one of the primary reasons that he talked about, right, is to distribute the risks, correct? Now, it is important that when assuming that you've chosen your the direction in which you want a career to take, right, and you know that in order to reach your career goal, right, or your aspiration, an MBA is essential, right? And you also recognize the fact that an MBA makes sense only if you, do it from a reputed institute, correct? Then after this comes the question of what are the reputed institutes, right? Which are the tests that would help me reach out to these institutes and help me get an admit, correct? So that is where all of these different tests come in, right? So as Durga sir had mentioned initially, most of us start off by thinking about the IIMs, right? And obviously a lot of us would equate the IIMs to the CAT, right, which is natural, right? However, as we go along, right, we realize that the MBA, the B school scenario in India, especially, is much wider than only the IIMs, right? And that is where other institutes would start making their presence felt, right, within the within your the consideration set in your mind, right? And that is where the other exams come in, correct? So distributing your your chances, in addition to distributing a risk, it is also about availing more opportunities, correct? Because there are quite a few, as I'll be showing you a little later in the presentation, right? There are institutes in the top 10, 15, and even top 30 categories, right, which may not take the CAT, okay, which take only some other exam, right? Maybe they conduct their own exams, right? So in which case then, in order to knock on their doors, you will have to appear for other exams in addition to the CAT. Now, nowhere are we suggesting that these tests replace the CAT. Okay, what we are simply telling you, right, is that it makes sense to consider these tests in addition to taking the CAT, right? The CAT remains, as we call it, the mother of all tests, right? It's probably the most comprehensive test. It is, also to a large extent, it is the most popular test in the sense that the number of institutes, within that category that we're talking of, right? Even if you in fact extend that to the top 50, all right, the CAT remains the most popularly accepted test. There's no doubt about that, right? So taking the CAT is a given, right? You have to do that, right? However, you also need to look for other options, all right? And that is where these non-CAT tests come in. So let me introduce you to these non-CAT tests, right, by taking you through an exam calendar, right? So typically, okay, I also, so before I do that, right, there are a couple of people who have raised their hands. I would just like to remind you that we will have a very detailed question answer session, right, at the end of the PPT. Maybe if possible, I will also give you a little bit of time during my talk, right, in the middle of two sections, right, where I'll kind of throw the floor open for you, right, and answer a few of the questions that you've put on the chat, right? So there's no need to raise your hands, right, and no need to put anything in the Q&A section. Whatever questions you have, please put that in the chat box, right? So coming back to what I was talking about, right? So let's look at the exam calendar, right? So in a typical year, the MBA exam season, so to speak, right, would start off from around October of any year and go on right up to around March, right? So October to March, right, these 6 months, okay, are what we call as the exam season, right? Traditionally, the exam season used to open with the CAT, right? The CAT historically used to be, right, the first exam that would come your way, correct? However, with the introduction of the NMAT and so the NMAT, which is the exam conducted by NMIMS in Mumbai, as I'm sure most of you would be aware of, right? Is a very unique exam, right? In the sense that unlike other exams, it gives you the flexibility of appearing for that test multiple times. So I'll talk about that in a little more detail later on, right? So the NMAT has what is called a testing window, okay, not just one single date, correct? So the testing window for the NMAT would start from the first week of October and go on right up till the middle of December, right? So nowadays, the exam calendar, exam season, right, starts with the NMAT, right? The NMAT typically has about 45 to 50,000 takers across all its, across its total testing window, right? And since people can take it multiple times, right? So the total number of attempts of the NMAT typically turns out to be around 70 to 75,000 attempts. The NMAT primarily is, is not only for NMIMS, right? And NMIMS itself has multiple campuses, right? Its main campus being still in Mumbai, but there's also NMIMS Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Navi Mumbai, and all of that. But in addition to that, NMAT is also accepted by multiple other institutes, right? Then of course comes the CAT, right? The CAT traditionally has always been in the last Sunday of November. At least for the last few years, it has been the last Sunday of November. The CAT, as I told you earlier, is remains the most popular test, right? Even in terms of number of takers, you have as many as 2.2 lakh takers, right? So it typically ranges from 1.8 lakhs to 2.2 lakhs, right? Somewhat in that range. In terms of the number of takers for the test, right? Nowadays, there are two slots in which the CAT happens, right? There's a forenoon slot and an afternoon slot, but typically it's the last Sunday of November. Then comes the IIFT exam, right? The IIFT, or the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, is also a very good institute. We would place it in at par with some of the newer IIMs, right? And especially if you're interested in making a career in foreign trade or international business, probably IIFT would have to be your number one choice, right? So the IIFT conducts its own exam. It's conducted on the first Sunday of December. There are approximately 60,000 takers. IIFT, of course, has two major campuses, right, in Delhi and Calcutta. Then comes the SNAP, right? The SNAP, or the Symbiosis National Aptitude Test, is a test which is jointly conducted by the institutes belonging to the Symbiosis family, right? So this is a family of institutes which are located primarily in Pune, right? And they conduct and accept scores of the SNAP, right? So the SNAP is conducted on the third Sunday of December. There are approximately 50,000 takers for this particular exam. Then of course comes the XAT, right? Probably after the CAT, the XAT is the test that we would recommend the most, right? Considering that XLRI in Jamshedpur, right, which is of course at par with even the older IIMs like Ahmedabad, Bangalore, and Calcutta, is the main institute which conducts the XAT exam, right? So the XAT is on the first Sunday of January, typically, right? Around 90,000 takers for the test, right? And the XAT is also accepted by a lot of non-Xavier institutions. Okay, I'll give you more details a little later in the presentation. Then comes the CMAT, right? Now the CMAT is a national exam, is a national level exam, right? A common management admission test. It is conducted on the third Sunday of January. Considering that it is, it has a nationwide scope. There are only 50,000 odd takers of the CMAT. But yes, there have been a lot of instances which we have come across where students who may not have performed too well in the CAT or the XAT, right, have excelled in the CMAT and have been able to get into the same institutes that they would have aimed for through the CAT, right? So I'll give you more details later on. Then comes the MyCAT, right? The MyCAT is the exam which is conducted by MICA, that is the Mudra Institute of Communication in Ahmedabad. It is conducted on the first or second weekend of December, as well as the first, second weekend of February, right? Approximately 9,000 takers. MyCAT is an additional test in the sense that to apply to MICA, you have to take either the CAT or the XAT, right? And in addition to that, you can take you'll have to take the MyCAT. other than all of these institute-specific tests, if you will, right, there are state-level exams also conducted by multiple states in India, right, which are accepted by a majority of the B schools within that particular state, right. So while a lot of states do have their own individual, state-level exams, but the most popular amongst them, right, is the Maharashtra MBA or MMS-CET, right, is conducted by the Maharashtra state government under the Department of Technical Education, DTE, and it is accepted by quite a few B schools within the state of Maharashtra, specifically in Mumbai, right. The Maharashtra CET typically rounds off the entire season, right, in the sense that it is typically the last exam, last major exam to be conducted, and it's conducted somewhere in the second week of March, the second Sunday of March to be more precise, right? And there are roughly about 1 to 1.1 lakh takers, right? Not just within Maharashtra, but all over the country, right? Because within the institutes that accept the CET, you have a significant quota of seats reserved for students who come from outside Maharashtra state, right? So again, I'll talk about that later. So this is broadly the exam calendar, right? These are some of the major non-CAT exams that we would suggest it take. Of course, there are still there are other exams also, right? So for example, there is something called as the MAT, right? There's something called as the ATMA test, right? So yes, those tests also remain, right? However, the reason that we have not included those over here is probably because you don't have too many institutes in the league that we are talking of, right? The top 30 or the top 50, right? Which accept the MAT and the ATMA. So we would suggest that in addition to the CAT, you expand your basket of tests, right, to all of these different tests, right? Now, as Durga sir was mentioning earlier, the core subject areas that are tested through all of these tests more or less remain the same. Most of these tests would, are aptitude tests, of course, right? And they test you on typically, 3 subject areas, right? Obviously, quantitative aptitude, right? Verbal aptitude, correct? That is your math skills and your verbal skills, respectively, your English language skills. And third is reasoning aptitude, right? A few tests also test you on, your general awareness, for example, right? So the core concepts that are tested by these exams pretty much remain the same, right? However, the structure of each test is different. The number of sections, the timelines allotted, the importance given to each kind of question, or each subject area is a little different in these different tests, right? So that is what we were mentioning earlier, right? When Durga said that different tests require different skills, right? So as I will show you, right, giving you a quick comparison between the CAT and some of these other exams, right? The emphasis that they place on each of these subject areas differs, right? And that is where for some of you, right, you might realize, right, that you would do better in a different test, okay, as compared to the CAT, simply because the emphasis is probably more suited to your strengths, right? Right. So let's start talking about each of these tests, right? So whenever students come to us, right, they ask us, if not the CAT, or in addition to the CAT, which are the other tests that we should take. The first name that pops out, in our minds also is the XAT, right? The XAT, or the Xavier's Admission Test, is a test which is conducted by by XLRI. It is accepted by the entire Xavier's family of institutes. It is also accepted by a lot of other institutes that take up the CAT as well, right? The XAT, in a lot of ways, is similar as well as different, right, as compared to the CAT, right? So if I were to give you a quick sort of a comparison between the CAT and the XAT, right, in terms of the proportion of questions coming from each subject area, right? I hope this table is visible to you, and I'll help you make understand this. So each of these column heads that you see, QA, DI, LR, CR, etc., are all subject areas, right? So QA is of course quant, right? DI is data interpretation, LR is logical reasoning, CR is critical reasoning, verbal ability, reading comprehension, decision making, general awareness, and what is called abstract reasoning, right? So these are the broadly the subject areas on which each of these tests test you. Now, if you look at the CAT, right, I'm sure most of you would be aware, right? The CAT has 100 questions, right, broken down into 3 sections, correct? So the quant section has 34 questions, DI and LR section is 32, and the verbal section has 34 questions, right, making a total of 100, right? So it's almost evenly, you can say it's almost evenly split, right, between each of these three sections, right? The ZAT, on the other hand, is a little different, right? So around 37% of the questions are reserved for QA and DI combined, right? That is quant and data interpretation, which broadly would cover most of the math skills that you would need, right? The verbal part, right, including critical reasoning, right, accounts for about 35%, right? And most importantly, there is a section called decision making, right, which is a section which is unique to the ZAT, right? As much as 28% of the questions come from this particular section, right? It's a very interesting section. It brings out a lot of your so-called analytical skills, right? Your ability to evaluate a situation, analyze it, look at different courses of action, right, and then decide which is the best course of action, right, given the conditions in the situation, right? So it's where you actually, in a way, get to act as a manager, right, and decide on what is the most appropriate course of action, right? So it's a very interesting section. So if you believe that your ability to analyze information, your ability to evaluate your options and arrive at a decision, right, is good, right, then obviously that is an exam that you should be taking. What I've also listed down here, for your benefit, is are certain real life examples, okay, examples that we in IMS over the years have come across, right, of students who may have done mediocrely well in the CAT, right, or even lesser than that, however, have cracked some of the other exams and have got a very good admit, or at least a call, right, from one of these top 30 B schools, right, which probably they would not have even hoped for through their CAT scores, right? So, for example, if you look at Rakesh, right, Rakesh is an engineer, right? He attempted the CAT, right? For some reason, he ended up with a 58 percentile, right? All of you would agree it's not a very great score. However, he took the ZAT as well, right? And in the ZAT, he came up, he went up to 89 percentile and ended up getting a call from XLRI for its business management program, the BM program, right? Harika similarly attempted the CAT last year, right? Ended up with an 84 percentile, a reasonably average score. Took the ZAT, increased her percentile to 93 and got a call for the HRM, the program of XLRI, right? So there are multiple other examples also that we can cite, right, where students have from different backgrounds, right? So not necessarily from a particular background itself, right, but from different backgrounds for various reasons may not have been able to score well in the CAT, but when they took the other exam, they excelled in it and they ended up in a very great college, right? You should not forget the IIFT, right? As I mentioned earlier, for those of you who are looking at foreign trade or international business, IIFT has to be top of mind for you, right? All of these, students listed down here, Kiran, Paritosh, Pranay, all of them, eventually did get a call from IIFT, right? Although, as you can see, their CAT percentiles are nothing to write home about, right? Doing a quick comparison between the IIFT and the CAT, right? Other than the regular sections of quant, DILR, and verbal, it also has a fairly significant general awareness section, right? Which again, works out to be about 18% of the total, right? To a large extent, the general awareness section is like a make or break, right, for the IIFT, right? The questions at times do tend to be obscure, right? But the cutoffs are typically very low, right? So if you fancy yourself, to be, well read, right, well aware of things which are happening around you, and also a little bit of history, then yes, IIFT is is an exam that you can crack, and you should be take a shot at the at this particular institute. So coming to NMAT, as I mentioned earlier, the NMAT is a multi-attempt test, right? You can take the NMAT as many as 3 times, okay, within that test window of October to December, right? The NMAT also revolves around pretty much, these three broad subject areas where you have quant and AI, you have reasoning. Now that reasoning would include logical reasoning, critical reasoning, verbal reasoning, and all that, and also verbal ability and RC, right? Typically, the focus on quant and AI is slightly higher than the others, right? With verbal being probably the least. However, the fact also remains that the level of questions in the NMAT, and the CAT are comparable, okay, to an extent, right? So NMAT also offers you, the most important aspect of the NMAT is the flexibility that it offers you in terms of taking the test multiple times, and each time you're aiming for a higher score. Okay, so eventually it will then take the score which is the highest out of all your attempts, right? Again, to cite a few examples of students who have excelled in the NMAT but not so much in the CAT, right? Harsh had appeared for the CAT again last year, ended up with a 68 percentile, took the NMAT. If I'm not mistaken, he took it twice, and in the second attempt, he got 95.7 percentile, ended up with an IMS-Mumbai call, right? Aman Bansali, also, a BCom student. He took the CAT slightly earlier, right? So CAT, he was a student with us for CAT 2017, ended up with 73 percentile. NMAT, he ended up with a 98 percentile, okay, 98.6 actually, with a score of 220, right, at that time, which is quite a good score actually. And he also got an NMAT-Mumbai call. He converted that, and he's about to finish his course there. Then you have the SNAP, right? As I mentioned earlier, a very great, very good choice for, because it opens the doors to multiple institutes, right, within the Symbiosis family, right? The SNAP also, again, like like the NMAT, tests you on quant, logical reasoning, and verbal, right? Pretty much an even split, right? But in terms of probably the level of difficulty, it is a little lower than the CAT. Okay. Examples of students who aced, the SNAP as against the others, right? Devapriya took the CAT last year, 85 percentile, and got as much as 99.79 percentile in the SNAP, right? And ended up getting a call from SIBM Pune, the flagship institute of the Symbiosis family, right? Chirag Thakkar, a BBA student from Mumbai, took the CAT the year before, that is in 2018, ended up with an 83 percentile. Took the SNAP last year, right? Got a 98.6 percentile and ended up with SCMHRD call, right? Now, SCMHRD, for those of you are aware of, right, is a very good institute if you are specifically, looking for making a career in the field of HR, right? Then, of course, you have the CMAT, right? As I mentioned earlier, the CMAT is a national level exam. It's considerably easier than the CAT, right? And it's a very structured exam in the sense that you have exactly 4 sections and equal number of questions, equal weightage across each of these 4 sections, right? So 25% for quant, 25% for LR, 25% for verbal, and 25% for general awareness, right? So it's a very balanced exam in that sense, right? It also tests you on general awareness. So again, like with the IIFT exam, if you are reasonably good with your GK, right, then the CMAT is an exam that you probably should be looking for, right? And also, the CMAT quite a few times, is an exam which is accepted by institutes that also accept the CAT. Many a time it goes parallelly with the CAT, right? And to get into the same institute, it's probably easier to go through the CMAT route than the CAT route, right? As these students, demonstrate very effectively, right? Shivangi and Himadri both took the CAT last year, right? Shivangi ended up with only a 57 percentile, but in the CMAT went almost up till 98 percentile, right? And the same is the case with Himadri as well, right? Of course, comes the Maharashtra CET, right? Again, a very popular state level exam, right? A lot of actual CAT takers also take the CET aiming specifically for Jamnalal Bajaj, right, in Mumbai, right? So the CET has a wide variety of questions, right? You have quant questions, of course, you have LR, you have verbal reasoning separately, you have verbal ability separately, you have also what is called as abstract reasoning or visual reasoning, as it is called, right? Where you have a series of figures and you have to look at patterns within them and things like that, right? Also, the main attractiveness of the CET A is the fact that it's a reasoning heavy test, right? Its emphasis on quant is significantly lesser than the other, right? Only 25% of the 200 questions in the CET are quant or DI related, correct? Whereas reasoning forms a very major chunk, right? Also, of course, the second and probably most popular reason why students take the CET is the fact that there are no negative marks in the CET, right? As against the other exams where you have negative marks for every incorrect answer, right? So a couple of our students who have excelled in the CET, right? In fact, Tarushi Jha, right, took the CAT, ended up with a 94 percentile. Not a bad score, of course, right? But maybe not sufficient, to get into the top 10 institutes, right? But in the CET, right, has ended up with a 99.7 percentile, having a very good shot at GBMS. Pranali similarly, right, took the CAT, something went drastically wrong, right, ended up with only about a 37 percentile, but in the CET came up to 95 percentile, right? Would not get a crack at JB, but there are other institutes also that she can look forward to, right? So all in all, what we're trying to simply emphasize upon here, right, is that there are other options that you can look at, which might be more suitable to your skill sets, right? And where, as these examples demonstrate, right, you have a fair chance of making it into some of the best institutes in India, right? Even if, God forbid, something goes wrong in the CAT, right? Finally, of course, you have the GMAT, right? The GMAT is, to a lot of us, the GMAT is sort of a gateway to going abroad, right? It's equivalent to doing an MBA from an international university. However, a lot of most of us forget, and we'd be surprised to know that the GMAT is also accepted by a lot of Indian institutes, right? Not just the ISB. I'm sure the first name that probably came to your mind was ISB, but not only ISB, there are a lot of other institutes which also accept the GMAT, right? The advantage of the GMAT is the fact that you can take it whenever you wish, right? It's offered throughout the year, correct? You can take it multiple times in the year. You can take it as many as 5 times in a calendar year. And also its scores stay valid for 5 years, unlike all of the other Indian exams that I listed earlier, right? So you take the GMAT once, you can keep applying for multiple years using that particular score, right? So yes, you get the opportunity to get calls even before your CAT actually happens, right? It also in a lot of ways builds your confidence to crack the CAT, right? If you've taken the GMAT, you've got a good score there, you know that it is there in your bank, correct? And so the confidence to take a shot at the CAT would increase. As I mentioned, a lot of Indian institutes do end up taking the GMAT, right? In addition to whatever other exams they would anyways be taking, right? So to give an example, SPJ, right, accepts the CAT, of course, but it also accepts the GMAT, right? You look at other colleges like FOR, for example, or Goa Institute of Management, right? KJ Somaya, TAPME, Great Lakes, Loyola, BITS Pilani, BIMTech, MICA, a lot of them accept the GMAT. And if you look at the percentile cutoffs, right, for the GMAT, they typically tend to be significantly lesser than the CAT, the corresponding CAT percentile that these institutes would take up, right? So for example, if you look at Goa Institute of Management, right, Goa Institute of Management requires a score of nearly 600, right, in the GMAT, on a scale of 800, right, which roughly translates to about 55 percentile, right? As against that, to apply to GIM through the CAT, you would require 88 percentile, right? The same is pretty much the story with KJ Somaya or TAPME, Great Lakes. Most of these institutes, the story remains the same, right? So the GMAT is also a great option that we would recommend for a lot of you, even if you're aiming only at Indian schools, right? We're going to, in this particular event, we're going to have a special session on the GMAT as well tomorrow, so stick around for that, right? So finally, I've talked about a lot of tests, a lot of institutes. So if I have to summarize all that, correct, and give you a list of the top B schools and the entrance exams that they take, right? Then in the the topmost category that we have, which we call the creme de la creme institutes, right, which are the top 15 colleges, right? As you can see, a lot of them accept the CAT, right? But there are other non-CAT exams also that they're accepting, which I have highlighted here in red, right? So you have the IIFT, you have the PGDBA, by the way, the postgraduate diploma in business analytics, right, is a wonderful program, specifically for those who are numerically oriented, right, who want to make a career in the upcoming fields of business analytics or big data management and things like that, right? So three of the best institutes in India, IIM Calcutta, ISI, the Indian Statistical Institute, and IIT Kharagpur, right, have come together to conduct this program, right? And they conduct their own exam, right? ISB, of course, takes the GMAT or the GRE. SPGN, in addition to the CAT, takes the ZAT and the GMAT. XLRI takes the ZAT and the GMAT, right? I should have highlighted CET also over here, right? That I have not, but that's also a non-CAT exam. So IMS in Mumbai takes the CET. Coming down to the next set of 20 institutes, right? Again, a lot of them accept the CAT, but there are the prevalence of other exams goes on increasing, right, as we go lower down the order, right? So MICA, for example, as I mentioned earlier, takes the CAT, ZAT, or GMAT in addition to the MICAT, right? NMAT takes the NMAT, SCMHRD and SIV in Pune take the SNAP. TIS, right, the Tata Institute of Social Science, again, one of the premier institutes, in India, especially if you're considering making a career in the field of, HR, social sciences, or anything like that, right? Then it conducts its own test called the TISNET. XIMB, that is Xavier's in Bhubaneswar, right, accepts all of these different tests. And then going further beyond the top 30, right? So between the range of 30 to 50, right? These are the institutes which come in that range, and you can see that the prevalence of the other non-CAT exams increases drastically, right, in this particular section. Okay, right? So now that we have understood the need for taking the other non-CAT exams, and also got a fair understanding of which are the exams that you should be aiming for, right? Let's talk about how to select which tests to take, right? So obviously, you might not want to attempt all these exams, correct? You might want to restrict yourself to probably 3 or 4 exams, in a particular season, right? CAT definitely being one of them, correct? But in addition to that, how do you then select which of these exams should you be attempting, right? That is something that we will be focusing on over here. And in order to throw light on that, right, I invite Samrat sir to take over the presentation, right? Samrat sir is the chief mentor for the Kolkata region, right? And over to you, Samrat sir.
Good morning again, guys. I think right now we are in a position where we understand the importance of the other exams apart from CAT that we should be opting for, right? Now, let me add a few more points to what Bimal said just now regarding the other exams and their chances and how people have fared in CAT as compared to other exams also. Now, a very important thing that comes while selecting the right test is your preference of doing a specialized course. So the first thing that comes is the preference for doing a specialized course. Like in many colleges, they have a special course that they offer. Suppose I work in a company in a specific domain for quite a few years, then I decide that yes, I want to see myself taking the next leap in my career in that domain only. So here comes some of the sectoral programs. Like you can see that for HR, we have these top colleges. Out of them, XLRI comes under ZAT. TIS, as Bimal sir discussed, that it comes under your TISNET examination. Similarly, NMIMS is NMAT, and SCMHRD comes under SNAP. So what happens that if I am thinking of doing HR, if I have plans of doing management in human resource, then these are the colleges that I should target. And when I'm targeting these colleges, I have to write different examinations along with CAT also. So the importance of those examinations come here. Similarly, along with HR, we can also talk about the other fields of specialization. It can be your marketing related also, something which is now, if you know MICA conducts its exam called MyCat, right? So MICA specializes in marketing, advertising, communication. And so if you want to pursue a career in that, you can look at MICA. Again, SIMC comes under SNAP, Symbiosis College. Okay. Then comes the analytics, which is the next big thing that is coming up, and people have started talking a lot about doing management in business analytics. Like there will be a session where we will be discussing the next gen specializations, where analytics would be one very important thing that we will be discussing in that session. Okay, now the colleges PGDBA, like sir discussed just now in IIM Calcutta, right? We have a business analytics course which has been started by IIM Bangalore also, right? Then you have a CMHRD, NMIMS, Goa Institute of Management. They are also offering courses related to analytics. So if you are keen on those, then I'm looking at appearing for other exams also. Okay. Now healthcare. Right now, since in this if we look at India, we think one major concern is we need people managing the healthcare system, right? So the colleges, they have also started offering courses related to healthcare management. Some of the top colleges would be TIS, obviously TIS Mumbai, then you have GIM, and you have TAPMI, that's in Manipal, right? So they also offer healthcare. And finally, you have Symbiosis Institute of Information, International Business, Operations Management, SIOM, and you have Digital and Telecom Management also. Along with that, what I have heard people talking about construction management, right? Some people are interested in sports management also, right? So there are things, there are different specialized courses that you can opt for. So if you are planning to pursue any one of those specialized sectoral programs, the advice is very clear. Please go to the college, visit the college, see what exams do they consider. And accordingly, that might be one way of selecting the right exams that I should appear for. Now, this is something that sir has already discussed when he took you through those cases where people who could not do that well in CAT ended up doing much better, because now this entire table shows all the exams at the same place. So as you can see that there is quite a variety in the weightages given to various sections, whether it's the verbal ability, mathematics, quant, DILR, you can actually take a screenshot of this. This is really, really handy because it helps me to decide where I'm good at. So in which area I need to focus more, right? So I won't get into the details of this thing. Rather, I would take you to the next slide, right? This is how we compare those examinations, another way of selecting the tests. Now, these are something that we have got from all the students that we have trained for all these years. This is something which is very common among students. Number one, overall difficulty level. It's most people, they would, when they are asked that how do you rate a CAT, XAT and IIFT versus a SNAP, NMAT, CMAT and CET, many people, they come and say that we are much more comfortable with a SNAP, NMAT, CMAT and CET than a CAT and XAT. So somebody who feels that I'm more comfortable with the pattern and the type of questions that are asked in these questions, so why not keep these as one more option for me? That can be my plan B, which will take me to that desired course that I'm looking at, right? Second, some of the exams, like you must be aware about CAT, where the question numbers are less. In fact, XAT, it's a little less than that. But when it comes to NMAT, SNAP and CET, the test is of speed. So if someone who is very good in doing questions or solving questions at a higher speed, they should keep these exams as an option, because they normally end up doing better in these examinations where it's a test of speed. Now the next one is they have different weightages for different sections, like the previous diagram or previous table that you saw in the previous slide, that each exam has got its own characteristics. So according to what you are comfortable with, you have to decide. So if we have to conclude this entire thing, so we can summarize by saying that number one, the first point is CAT, XAT, as sir has discussed, that CAT and XAT exams are the most widely accepted test scores for getting into the various MBA programs across the country. So CAT-ZAT is mandatory. At least target 2 to 3 more tests based on your target B schools, the college that you are looking at. I want to do sports management, right? So I have to appear for Symbiosis. I want to do human resource management. So TISNET is one of my options. TISNET as well as Symbiosis, means SNAP as well as ZAT, because XLRI is there, right? So I have to think from that perspective also. Third, how comfortable are you with the syllabus? Comfortable means, again, we are talking about the weightage. In some cases, in some exams, the weightage towards maths goes down. Especially, I have heard this thing from many students who are coming from non-maths background, right? They end up doing better in tests which has got lesser weightage on the maths thing. So again, that is something that you have to take a call on, right? That your comfort. Now, the last part of this session, that how do IMS helps you? So what we have done, depending on the need of the students, we have divided our courses or our programs into various parts, like basically 4 types. Now, the first one is the program that is meant for all the tests, starting with CAT, ZAT, NMAT, SNAP, CET, TISNET, all the tests, right? So this is the comprehensive course that we offer for all our students, where you get prepared for each of these tests, right? You have those ADMAT workshops where you actually do workshops related to other examinations, non-CAT examinations after CAT also, right? So 60 mock tests for 11 non-CAT examinations, apart from the CAT related mock tests that we do, right? This is the major course that we offer. It's the program for all tests. Now we do some specialized one. Let us come to the first specialized one, where we focus on NMAT, SNAP and CMAT program. This is a program which is specially focused towards these 3 examinations. Somebody who is interested in appearing for these 3 only can look at this exam as a good option, right? So again, you get these details, right? So we have 40 area wise and 45 full length mock tests for NMAT, SNAP and CMAT. We do CMAT specific workshop series. You get those GDPI online booster sessions and all, right? As well as you have the GQuest, which is the GK module or the GA module, general awareness or general knowledge module that you get, apart from all the classroom and videos which are uploaded in the student portal. Then comes the third one. What we have done, we have made a small change. Instead of CMAT, we have put in CET. Like people who are interested in looking at or going to Maharashtra for their MBA, right? So NMAT, SNAP and CET, right? If my plans are that yes, I want to go to Bombay to do my, or Pune to do my masters, so this is the program that I'm looking at, because it trains me, it prepares me with all these things, right? Now comes the final one, which is a CET exclusive program, where we take you through the nuances of the Maharashtra CET exam. So people who are only focused on Maharashtra CET should get the maximum from these courses, because entire program is managed in such a way that it covers all the finer details related to this Maharashtra CET examination, right? So you have those 70 area-wise tests plus 20 full-length mocks only related to Maharashtra CET examinations. So these are the 4 types of courses that currently IMS is offering.
There are some exams for which sectional cutoffs are applicable, for some they are not. Like IIFT does have sectional cutoffs. NMAT Mumbai considers sectional cutoffs for NMAT, whereas Symbiosis colleges do not have any sectional cutoffs for SNAP. So ZAT, you will have colleges like XLRI and XUB which considers sectional cutoffs, but the other colleges consider the overall score. So it varies. So it cannot be very standard or same for all the colleges.
I think no sectional cutoffs for the Maharashtra CET as well.
Perfect. So Maharashtra CET also do not have any sectional cutoffs. Even when you look at the B schools accepting CAT, the IIMs, FMS, MDI, NITI, and a couple of IITs, these do have sectional cutoffs, but as you move down to the subsequent categories of B schools, they consider only the overall percentile, but not the sectional scores.
For CAT, XAT and MH-CET as well as other programs, if you are also thinking about the others, then the comprehensive one is the best course that you can opt for, because we cover all the other 10-11 examinations that are happening in the country along with CAT as a part of it. So I would suggest the comprehensive course.
The program's name is Catapult.
Catapult.
Right?
The program's name is Catapult.
So if you in contact with any of the IMS centers, right, then you can ask for the Catapult program. Right?
They normally, Samir, in most of the colleges, what happens that when you take the electives in the second year of your program, you take strategy as your electives. There are strategy related subjects that you take up, and normally you do not get a specialization called strategy. You get a role which is a strategic role. You have an option of working in a company in that strategic role. But there are papers related to strategy that you take up in the second year of your MBA program.
Does IMS offer CAT, XAT, GMAT comprehensive course? So as Samrat sir had mentioned earlier, our Catapult program, the flagship CAT program, covers all the Indian examinations, right? Whether it's the CAT or the XAT or the NMAT or the SNAP or whatever others, right? For the GMAT, we have a separate program as well, but we also have a facility where you can prepare for both the Indian exams as well as GMAT through a singular comprehensive course, right? But more details can be had either from our website or from the nearest center, right? But yes, we do offer a comprehensive program covering the Indian exams as well as the GMAT.
But one thing, please understand, guys, that when I'm appearing for any competitive exam, my objective is to, and as you know, you end up getting a percentile score, right? It is a comparison of where you stand with respect to others. So to get a percentile, you are never sure that what score will give me what percentile, right? So your job is not to start off by thinking that this is the percentile that I'm looking at. So try to go for the maximum that is possible, be the best in the examination. Try to get that and you'll definitely end up with a good percentile.
All the best, guys.
Okay, best of luck, everybody.